Good day, and thank you for joining us for the Marketing Guides for Small Business podcast. I'm Ian Cantle from Outsource Marketing, and I'm joined by Ken and Paul from Changescape Web and Jen Kelly from New Initiatives Marketing. If you're like many growing businesses, you wonder whether you should be hiring an in-house marketer or continue using vendors or marketing agencies. There's pros and cons to both models. However, I've observed a tendency by some business owners to naturally gravitate towards hiring in-house employees because that's what they're familiar with. They think they'll have more control, and they think the results will be better, and they sometimes think it will also save them money. But is this true? It's a big decision, which could have long-term ramifications on the profitability of your business. So as marketing guides who have worked corporately where we hired marketers, and now as agency owners, we want to help you avoid the biggest pitfalls by asking the important questions that you need to ask before hiring an in-house marketer. So let's jump in. Jen, the first question is for you. Why do businesses sometimes gravitate to hire an internal marketer versus an agency?
Okay, well, I'll answer this from the perspective of a company deciding, okay, marketing is very important to us. Do we go agency route or do we go in-house marketer route? Because we've also been in, I'm sure a lot of us, or we have for sure, been in situations where we have been working with a company and then they decide like, oh, we get how to run the marketing now, we get who we need, now we're going to bring it in-house. So this is a totally different kind of situation. This is like, all right, we have to plunge into the pool of getting serious about marketing and we're going to hire someone in-house. So I think they sometimes gravitate, at least in my experience of talking to small business owners and seeing it happen. They think that, and it comes from a positive place, right? They're like, okay, we really need to get serious about marketing. We need somebody in-house. We need someone down the hall. We need someone, like 100% on our side, focused on our work. So I think they do it because they have a serious commitment to marketing. I think they also do it because they feel that they'll get more attention and more focus out of their marketing. Let's call it their marketing department by having someone in-house. And I think they actually wildly underestimate what marketing means, and in thinking that one person can do it all. You did mention as well about the finances. So the cost of it, like, oh, if we bring someone internal, we don't have these agency fees and whatnot. Everything's like, salary, benefits. It's more, I guess, more stable or more predictable for payroll. But what they seem to fail to think about is, okay, what actual work do we need done? And can that one person do all the things that we need doing in our marketing department to support our company within, a standard business day? So, and foreshadowing, the answer is no. But I think the reason they do it is really from a positive place, thinking that, we need to get serious, and serious means, a full-time in-house member of our staff.
I love that. I love that you've put you're getting into the head of a business owner, because you are a business owner, which is fantastic. And I like how you framed it in the frame of, we are now committed to marketing. Like, we see the need, we have to do it. This is how we think we need to move forward. So that's awesome. And it actually leads really nicely into my question for Ken, which is, who will manage and lead this internal marketer?
Themselves.
Is that realistic, Ken?
No, maybe you might get lucky. I mean, the reality of marketing today, well, it depends on the business's situation, right? I mean, so if you're trying to build out a full digital marketing presence where search engine optimization, social media, reputation management, lead generation through Google ads or whatever channel, Facebook ads, whatever, that starts to get pretty complex pretty fast. We've talked a lot about on this show that omni-channel is really best when it aligns, and works well for your business. Not every business needs that, so in some cases, if you have a really specific need for what you're trying to accomplish with marketing, then you might be able to hire an internal person that that can really that already has the expertise and can really go in and focus on doing that. Somebody does still have to manage and oversee that person, so it's going to fall to somebody in the management team that's already in place. Uh, the management team, I mean, if you ask them to report to the CFO, you might get numbers focused too much and not give something enough runway to be able to pay off and show the results. Because you look at it as maybe as an expense instead of an investment. If you're, the owner or main manager of the company, it's just one of another whole series of things that you have to add to your responsibilities. I think that there's definitely a time and a place to bring in internal resources to do this, or train somebody within your team, but somebody needs to have the overall visibility of what is a good marketing strategy and plan, and setting common expectations, and oftentimes even a common language that people use to communicate across the board. So I think there's this concept out there we've talked about in the past called fractional CMO. So you might be able to have a fractional CMO provide the oversight and direction for internal team members. That's going to be more focused on the activities and the outcomes of what they're doing. It's not going to deal with any internal, personnel related issues or things like that. You might be a little limited in terms of measuring. There are tools that you can help measure, how many hours they're working on a specific task and things like that. I don't know how effective those are at the end of the day or not. I think, but yeah, it's certainly something that every business needs to consider. I think the biggest thing is you've got to just ask yourself, what are you trying to accomplish? And you need to have some way to level set your expectations about the results you're going to get. If you're expecting one person to come in and be an expert on Google Ads, optimizing your website for SEO, optimizing your Google My Business page, doing social media management, that's a tall order for a single person. And so chances are you'll pretty quickly find that the cost to do that exceeds what it would cost to hire an agency to take that responsibility for you.
Yeah. I also find sometimes that managing and leading this internal marketer, it's kind of like it's not thought out that well, and it doesn't set the internal marketer up for very much success. So, okay, you're going to report into the office manager. Well, what is that person's? But like, how do I? Oh, you're reporting into sales. It depends how the sales, does sales in this organization trust or embrace marketing? Is that the best thing? Oh, you're going to report into the CEO. Okay, well, I mean, is that the best way to do it? So you have to understand that too, because that person will be either coming to whoever's above them for the direction, or and also needs to feel that they're part of the organization in the right place and able to help the organization do what they do best through the marketing that they've been hired to do. So it can get tricky.
A couple of things that I see pretty frequently that people want to try to hire for is social media management, and writing content for the website, or maybe even managing the website. And, on the surface, those things are pretty easy to do. It's pretty easy to crank out social media content. Those tools are so popular because they are really easy to use. It's, you can write a lot of content, put on your website, really common. If you're not writing 500 words, Google ignores it. If it's less than 750 words, it may not even help you really rank because of all of the competition for all of the other websites that are out there. You may be getting production and activity, but it may not be helping you toward measuring the goals and working toward the goals that you really need to achieve. So that's a really big trap, I think, that the businesses can fall into. Yeah, you can hire people to do activities. Are they the right activities? One, and two, are they? Do they even have a chance of helping you achieve the goals and objectives that you set out for? If you've even defined what those are.
Yeah, yeah. When one of the you guys both alluded to this, but this conversation actually comes up. Not, I'd say like 10% of the time I'm talking to prospective clients, and the thing I always find fascinating, and it opens up a really interesting discussion with them, is that so it's usually the business owner I'm talking to. They're the decision maker. They're the person that actually manages the top level leadership team if it's a big enough company, or they manage everybody in their organization. And where it gets interesting is, usually you guys probably do this as well. Usually you're talking to them about strategy first, right? You've told me you need a website. That's fantastic, and we can do that for you. But what's your strategy? What's your core difference? Who's your target audience? And then you get down through the conversation and they're all sold on it. And then you talk about price and they're like, well, you know what? I think I'd rather hire a junior person in-house than do this. And what is the biggest challenge to that now is that, well, what strategy are they going to use? You alluded to that. You're the hiring manager and managing manager now, and you're going to hire somebody and you have no understanding, really. Most business owners have very little understanding of the inner workings and connectedness of digital marketing these days. So, if you get a great candidate coming in and they're proactive, they're very confident, they can say a few words that you don't know about SEO or content marketing or Google Ads, you think they're an expert, but how, like, as these guys have already said, like, how do you possibly know who is a good candidate or not, and what plan are they going to execute? I think that, to me, that's kind of the biggest challenge that's presented to the leader now as they go down this path. We're going to explore this in a couple different ways. So Paul, I thought this was a neat question, but it's often overlooked. So we talked about kind of the leadership, the management. Most business owners don't even think about, like, what are the tools? So if I'm going to hire somebody, probably a junior person, right? What tools do they need to actually fulfill the job? And how do I know what tools?
Well, I get what's a junior person? I mean, seriously, when you think about it, if you're hiring a junior person, what kind of expertise do they really have? And because there's a learning curve with a lot of these tools. Now, you could, obviously, Google Analytics is free, and that's pretty much a required no-brainer. But a lot of times we've run into situations where the analytics code was never actually installed on the website. So they have no historical analytics data. So you're starting with nothing. Now you can, if you're just starting out, you could probably get by with Search Console, or at least get started with Search Console, because if your website has been indexed, that will have some information if you don't have analytics. But you could start with that and Google Business Profile Insights, formerly known as GMB Insights. That has some information, but there is some debate on how good Google's reporting is, because Google likes to give you buckets of information. Google doesn't really drill down. So you're going to ultimately, at some point, you're going to need tools that allow you, and none of those free tools let you do a website audit. None of them let you Search Console, if you know where to look, it will give you some information on broken links. And they're actually getting better about that. But you're going to need something that finds broken links. You're going to need something that looks for technical SEO issues. And this person you're hiring, can they fix those? If you have a structured data problem, do they even know what that means, much less how to go about fixing it? So And these tools are not cheap, and you probably don't need a whole host of them, but it, like you said, it is something that needs to be considered, because some of these things, they can be a few $100s a month or more.
Sure. Good. And can I just ask the question in a different way before you jump in, Ken? Because I actually see an error in my ways of how I ask this question. If I were to ask it in another way, I would say, hey, Ken, hey, Paul, hey, Jen, how much, not which tools specifically, because we won't go down that path too far, but how much do you guys, and it's just ballpark, do you guys, in order to do the work you do exceedingly well for your clients in digital marketing, do you spend hundreds, thousands, a couple hundred dollars a month, a year on tools just to be able to analyze, deliver the services that you're doing in a great way? I don't know if that's a fair question, but
sure. Yeah, I'll say, well, thousands annually. I mean, not
Yeah.
like 100,000, but a fair chunk for sure.
Yeah.
And then each of those, it does have a learning curve to it for sure. Unless even if you are super technical, I mean, we're going through that right now with someone who is she's super gung ho to learn something new and very well versed technically. And they you don't have to spell it out for her. So opposite of me for sure. And, even she's having, it's, coming up the learning curve a bit slower than, even she would anticipate. So depending on the tool too, you gotta build in that learning time.
I would say typically to build the infrastructure that the typical marketing agency has in terms of tool sets, just to do pretty much straightforward blocking and tackling, SEO driven kinds of digital marketing, it's in the thousands per month. You've got to have a call tracking system. You should anyway. I mean, and you don't even know the right tools that you ought to probably have. You may have to pay for a license for a form builder. You can use a free form builder. It's going to cause you a lot of problems. You'll really regret it. So it's not a huge expense, but it's an expense. If you do anything like building quizzes or surveys, to help segment your audiences, so that you can more effectively nurture them to buy whatever is going to be most natural for them to want to buy. Landing page builders so that you can do A/B testing to make sure that you're getting the best bang for the buck, with the ads that you're driving traffic to, and making sure that you're getting the best conversions. All of those tools, I mean, there are probably, and if you look at the world of MarTech, I hate that phrase, but it's marketing technology, MarTech, it's an explosion of tools. I mean, there are just massive numbers of tools that are created and released each and every day. Some of them become obsolete. Some of them do really cool, gee whiz kind of cutting edge things. How do you decide? You believe me, I speak from authority on this. You can spend a gazillion dollars on tools if you're not careful.
That's called shiny object.
What's that?
That's called shiny object syndrome.
I was just going to say that, Paul. I'm as guilty of that as anyone, because I'm always looking for something that will help me do my job better for my clients, right? And I know you guys are as well.
That's our obligation.
But this is from people that know really deeply what we're doing, right? And
right.
We can get lured into tools that actually don't fulfill what we want. And I can't imagine, either a junior person, and I thought I should define that. To me, and this might be different for each of us, but to me, a junior marketer is somebody with 1 to 3 years of experience. And usually it's, that's how the pay structure in marketing usually works. And then after you have 3 years of experience, you kind of get bumped up to, an intermediate or something like that. But, these people are usually pretty fresh out of college, big theory stuff, not a lot of implementation experience. So,
yeah.
And, something else, going back to the tools, a lot of these tools come with free versions that have serious limitations, because the idea is they want you to buy the full version. But it's also knowing how to use it and how to interpret the data. We see this with Google Analytics all the time. If you don't understand how Google is presenting that data, you can draw a lot of incorrect conclusions. And that's true of any tool set. I guess one of the biggest gripes I have with analytics is bounce rate. Well, without context, that doesn't tell you anything. If someone went to your website because they wanted your phone number and then they leave, well, that's going to show up in Google as a bounce, but it served its purpose. They got your phone number and called you. So you have to have context. You have to look at that in connection with things like dwell time and, but if they go and look at a blog post and leave, that's a bounce. But if your average time on page is 7 minutes, well, people are reading the blog post. So it served its purpose. So you have to understand the context in which data is being presented to you as well.
Ian, on this, I mean, there is what tool should we buy? Not really sure. I've seen it go the other extreme where it's like, oh, we'll just buy HubSpot and that'll solve our problem. So the amount of clients that we've started to work with, which have just sunk so much money into this thing, and either haven't turned it on yet or barely use it as an email marketing tool. It's just like they're really overbuying, hoping it's the silver bullet. Mind you, it's kind of marketed that way. I mean, not just to pick on HubSpot, but any of this is is the silver bullet. Because I'm still looking for the silver bullet. Let me tell you.
Oh, Paul has it.
Paul is the silver bullet. Well, hey, let me ask the next question because I think this leads in well. Jen, what will these people be doing every day, and how will they do it? I know that's a very broad question.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's so interesting too because okay, so broadly speaking, if you're hiring in a marketing person, depending on what's going on with your company, you're probably in one of two camps. One camp being perhaps there is a job description and a well-defined role for the person to slide into. Everything in the company is working seamlessly, or like it's very established, right? The other thing is, it is a little bit more chaotic. We need this kind of person. We need the kind of person that can come in kind of without a job description and just get it done, right? That's, it's usually thrown at them. So it's really important to understand and to do that when you're interviewing, like what kind of person are you? Are you able to kind of take this blank page and be like, okay, this is my job. I know what I need to get done every day. So that's important. As we talk about a junior marketer, so 1 to 3 years experience in marketing, I mean, that could, people could switch careers or whatnot. I think it's important to understand like what kind of experience this person is coming in with, say in the business world in general. They may be new to marketing. They may have spent 10 years somewhere else. But as well, are they able to be a self-starter, get a few things going? Are they going to have to do that? Or are they the kind of person that really needs to be shown around and introduced and have the 3-month kind of ramp up? So that's important sort of personality wise, like what is this person doing? Because you do want to set them up so they feel like they're, you got the new person, thing to go through, but they have to feel like they're getting it or starting to understand how things work and whatnot. And I guess too, I mean, we have to speak about the times we're in. There's a lot more virtual work or hybrid work now than there ever was before. So even if you got 2 days in the office, 3 days out, that new person really has to be the type of person that can ramp up quickly, or there has to be the support in place to help that person ramp up quickly. And then, it really goes back to what they'll be doing every day. Who are they reporting into to let them know what they've got on their plate to get going with. So, and you talk about how will they do it? Well, we just talked about a whole bunch of analytics and software in order to get things going. I don't know of one marketing department or even one marketing person that can work today without any kind of software. So that's got to be in place as well. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of things to consider.
Yeah. Well, and maybe I should have framed these questions in different order because this leads into a question for Ken. As a business owner, how will the person in this role, who will define their strategic marketing plan that they will execute? Will they do it? Will the owner do it? Will a consultant do it? Like, we in the business know you have to have a plan, or you're chasing, I don't know what a good example is, bunny rabbits or something,
Your
but
tail.
you're chasing your tail. Yeah.
Yeah.
Herding cats.
Yeah. Well, I think the reality is, I mean, it's hard to address this generally because every business is different. Every business has different needs. Some businesses don't need as much of a strategic plan. Based on the size of the business, they just need to find, two great lead generation channels. It could be Google reviews and a paid ad strategy, depending on the size of the business. So when you're talking about that, you're probably not talking about hiring somebody full-time in to just do those two things either. But yeah, I mean, just over the last 4 or 5 years, it used to be that you needed to have 7 touches from a marketing perspective to make the sale. It's now more like 12. And the world is getting more and more complex because we as businesses have less control over the buyer's journey than we used to have. The buyer has most of the control. And so you need to really think through, what does that journey look like? Well, that's strategy. When you start to get into those questions, what channels do I need to be using? Where do they spend time online? Who are the people that I'm trying to target? I mean, there's just a lot there. So I think, probably the best thing, you're either going to have to hire somebody and hope that they can go do a really good job of reading a lot of articles. Maybe they do that on their own time. Maybe you pay them as part of their time to go read a bunch of articles and put together something that sounds good based on the information that they read. Or you hire a marketing guide basically to help you put that in place. Obviously I'm biased. I think, I mean, as a marketing company, we work with dozens of companies across different sizes, different industries. We see what works, we see what doesn't work. And we also have a peer group that we can very easily reach out to and ask questions that, if you hire somebody in-house, they may or may not have that group to really go out to. Now, there are Facebook groups or LinkedIn groups that maybe they join where they can ask some questions, but chances are they're not going to get answers from experts. They're going to get answers from people who really are dealing with the same issues as they are, and they can just only provide an anecdotal answer. So I think it's best if you can pay for the strategy work.
Yeah.
I would totally agree. Yeah. Then you got a real roadmap, and
Right.
and that's very important.
And Ken, you talked about the customer journey, well, about the touch points, and I was looking in a CRM just this morning for one of our clients because I thought data was being reported twice, and it actually wasn't. What had apparently happened on further investigation is they clicked on an ad and went to the landing page. Then they opened that landing page in another tab. So the CRM, because when I checked the GCLED ID, it was the exact same ID. Then they backed out of there, went directly to the website, and this also goes back to assisted conversions, went back to the website, went to the regular page, then called the business. So they didn't call directly from the ad, but they wound up on the web page's not Google Ads landing page and call the business from there. But it was that ad that ultimately led to that conversion or to that phone call. And that's an unconvoluted customer journey. That's actually pretty direct, but that's exactly goes to Ken's point that there can be 12, 15, 17 touch points before someone actually calls or fills out a form or contacts the business.
Yeah. Well, and
Yeah.
Paul, you're jumping in there, just you saying what you just said there, which was probably, gobbledygook to a lot of people listening, right?
No.
But what my point in saying that gobbledygook to you is that most people, especially junior marketers, would have no clue. First of all, how
Yeah.
to find that information and how to dig into it and get the information you need. And I think that leads into the next question really well, which is for you, Paul. Are when you're hiring these people, are they experts in one area? Are they experts in each area of marketing that your marketing plan requires? Assuming you need a marketing plan in order to spend, like, a junior marketer's 30 to 50 grand, people. Like, if you go lower than that, you get what you pay for. So I think it's important that people understand that this is a large dollar decision you're making. So what kind of expertise should be expected from a junior marketer or somebody you're hiring, even if you're going to be more invested and you hire a true expert. Like an SEO expert costs over 100 grand to hire, like, to truly hire a good SEO expert. So trust me, I looked it up recently because I was curious what the industry averages are now. So, yeah,
that's a good point. What you said about how much it costs to hire, even if you hire someone for $35,000 a year, they're not going to stay there very long. Hopefully, I mean, from a salary standpoint, they're not going to make $35,000 a year for the next 10 years of their life. But if you offer any benefits on top of that, okay, that adds up. You could probably hire an agency for $3,000 a month. So that's $36,000 a year. Well, it's going to cost you more to hire someone internally. And back to your question, there's no way they can be an expert in every single area. You just can't do it.
Not at that price.
Well, I mean, even just, correct, but even realistically, because I'm more of a technical person, okay? I am not the person you're going to talk to if you want something creative done, all right? I can make stuff work, but I am not a designer, and that tends to be true. Technical people are not overly creative. Creative people they're not technical, and that's just the way the human brain is wired. You have right brain, you have left brain, and so you cannot be an expert in every area. And some things, if you're talking about SEO or web development, okay, are we talking web development or web design? Those, now there are page builders and tools that make that somewhat easier, but there's a difference between design, making it look pretty, and development, making it function correctly and building it with SEO in mind. And like I mentioned earlier, things like structured data, is a graphic artist or a designer going to be able to implement structured data properly? Probably not. So you're not going to hire someone. There's no way you can hire an in-person, there's no way you can hire someone that can do all these things cheaper than you can hire an agency. I just don't see how you're going to do it.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
And Jen, my next question was, what level of marketer will you hire? And I think my peripheral vision picked up that question while I was bringing in Paul on his question. So I apologize if I've overlapped a bit, but maybe talk a little bit about that.
Well, I think, so what level of marketer will you hire? I mean, that's the thing. Like, what do you need done? What kind of person do you need on your team? Do you need someone to come in and say, lead and set up the marketing department and work well with sales and understand that everything we do in marketing has to somehow lead to helping sales close deals? And this kind of goes back to what not necessarily what level, but also to what Paul said, because within marketing, there's a whole area of branding where design and color and form is just vital. But if you're hiring sort of more of a branding person and you're expecting them to give you the kind of data that Paul just did about what's going on my website, you're going to be very, very disappointed. So you got to make sure that you're hiring the right kind of person. And when you say the right level, not typically, okay, my journey had been, and I have seen this with some others, and chime in here what your guys' journey was. But when I came out of school, it was very focused on, okay, I was doing retail marketing. So we're in the head office of a national retail chain. And we're like, okay, we're responsible for promotions. And it wasn't until like my next job move, which I was exposed to direct mail. And I'm like, oh, look at this. I know it sounds funny, but to actually, start working in it, how do you plan campaigns and what's different about this than the in-store and whatnot. So the more experienced of a marketer that you have, typically the wider breadth of experience they have had, and they'll be able to come into your business and say, okay, yes, I'm going to pull in all my experience, and these are the things you need. Whereas if you hire someone junior, say new to the marketing discipline, they're going to know how to do a couple of things, and it might not be, it might be a hammer looking for a nail in that kind of way. So the whole money thing is really important, and I do understand that we don't have an unlimited budget. But what Paul said about, you can hire an agency for much less than you can hire a one single person. And Paul, I think you alluded to it, but that agency, think of the agency coming with, your 10-person marketing department instead of your one person in-house person. So it can, even if an agency is charging much more than $3,000 a month, if you're going for value for money, it might be the way to go.
Yeah, because an agency generally has different people with different specializations, where one person isn't going to have that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you don't need it all the time. You don't need someone looking at your website, looking at Google Analytics for 10 hours a day. You need someone to dive in, see it, understand, provide some insight, provide some, point of view or opinions on what should change or what's going really well. But, that person's not going to be staring at that for, 10 hours a day. So if you hire that type of person for your in-house marketer, like it's a poor use of time, a poor use of skills. So you got to ask a lot of those questions around that. And if you're listening to this, just kind of being blown away by it, us in marketing are blown away as well. I mean, when I started in marketing, we had to be concerned with TV, radio, like out of home. So billboard, buses and whatnot, TV, radio, fax ads. Do you remember those, guys?
Yellow pages,
fax machine
direct
ads.
mail.
Yeah, direct
fax
mail,
ads.
right?
Oh, the fax ads were horrible.
It was
And
enough
we have a
so
good
someone
fax.
could be, but it was enough so someone would be like, okay, yeah, here we go. Now there's so many different, different channels. Are you online? Are you offline? And then deeper within that, how do you, cross-reference it? How do you get the analytics? There's just so much more to pay attention to that. I mean, we're all quite keen on our marketing skills and whatnot, and we can't even do it all, so be aware of that for sure.
Well, yeah, I mean, I was talking to a friend of mine the other day who jumped in and got in, created a side business doing websites and SEO back in the early 2000s. And at the time, it just took a little bit of SEO and you could rank. Now it is so much more competitive because more people have jumped in. There's extra complexity there. There are so many signals that you have to recognize to be able to take advantage from an SEO perspective. The world changes and the acceleration of change and in digital is really fast. So, and the other thing I want to mention is, a lot of people are like, oh, really? Seriously? I can hire an agency at, a fraction of what I might pay a full-time employee. That sounds too good to be true. You got to realize we've got economies of scale. We've already purchased the tool sets that we can use to deliver for multiple clients at the same time. If you probably have to make the same level of investment or pretty darn close just to run the marketing for your business. So there are definitely things that kick in from an economy of scale perspective. Last thing I want to say in terms of salaries is most businesses seriously underestimate what the cost of an employee is.
Mm.
I come from a world where my previous life before marketing, where I bid on federal contracts in the US from an IT information technology perspective. You have to do a rate buildup. You have your direct labor costs. That's the salary that you pay somebody. Then you have to expense all of the benefits. What all benefits do they get? Is there a training benefit? Is there a paid time off benefit? Are you providing insurance? All of those kinds of things all have to be factored in. Then you have overhead costs. So in order to sell the products that you sell, and pay for the marketing department itself, you got to pay for that. You got to pay for your building or for your facilities. You got to pay for your paper. You got to pay for business cards. All of for your phone system. All of these things just literally to run your business. You have to build all of that in and factor that out for every single employee. And so I think as a good rule of thumb, take whatever you're paying somebody. If you're paying them $35,000 a year in salary, come close to doubling it, and that's your actual real cost.
Yeah,
Maybe 1.8, but an easy math calculation is 2 times what you're paying them in direct salary, and that's your actual cost for the employee.
Mm-hmm.
and something we haven't touched on, I won't take a lot of time here, but Ken mentioned about the competitiveness, and Google has accelerated their algorithm updates. They're coming out faster and faster. I think I read a little bit ago that they're minor, but they make adjustments to their algorithms 7 to 10 times a day. And then they just a little while back released what's called the vicinity update, which really screwed a lot of people on their local rankings. And that seems like it's starting to level out. But again, if you hire someone internally, are they going to know how to deal with those things? Do they even know what happens or what it is?
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things, and I think it's probably because I've had kind of, it's a little bit different, but a fairly similar career movement as you, Jen. One of the things as you were talking, that occurred to me that I think is really important for business owners to understand is that when we were in marketing roles, junior marketing roles, the things that you were expressing that you were learning and becoming an expert in, it wasn't that you were just naturally good at those things. Usually there was a more senior person that had the plan, that was teaching you and guiding you and actually keeping you away from the pitfalls because they'd done them a million times, right? That's how you create in a larger business with multiple marketers involved.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you gain your expertise. It's not by watching YouTube.
Right.
As much as that's helpful, that is helpful. Like I watch tutorials all the time when I need to pick up something quick, but it's not giving me the overarching guidance that I need to be really great at what I do.
Mm-hmm. Agree. Yeah.
Ken, I think you touched on this, but how will you gauge the expertise before you hire someone? How can a business owner do that when they're not an expert in marketing themselves?
I honestly don't really know.
Good answer. No,
I think for me, I mean, if I were doing it, I'm more concerned about somebody's aptitude and ability to learn and to learn quickly and to be able to learn on their own. Because you just mentioned YouTube, it's like I can't tell you the number of people. We all actually are in a network of people who are marketers who sometimes don't even go look at YouTube to figure out a really simple problem. And it happens all the time in everything that people do. But you have to be able to formulate the problem in a meaningful way to get a result back, even if you're going to be using YouTube. And so that I would really look for critical thinking skills is the biggest thing I'm going to look for. And then you've got to look at the tactical stuff. If you're hiring them to create social media posts, they've got to have a certain level of creative skills. They've got, because the posts have to look good. Maybe they have to have the ability to do video editing. If you're hiring them to run Google ads, they need to know what it takes to write good ad copy. How many ads do you need to run? So you can ask them, kind of exploring questions, but is the typical business owner, do they know that you need to be running 4 to 6 variations of Google ads for every every ad campaign you're doing, just to be able to get the most out of your Google ad performance? So how do you, if a lot of people are probably just going to hire somebody and run one ad. Okay, well, you're missing a big opportunity and you're wasting a lot of cost. So right there, it's pretty easy to justify the investment of hiring somebody who can provide that level of guidance and expertise, just because of the money that's wasted. Just
and what you're saying too, Ken, and what you're saying too is that you as the business owner are taking them on a work to learn experience. Essentially, you're paying for their real life education and implementing the marketing at your expense, but also potentially at the expense of the results, right? Because we all learn micro wins and failures and different things we do, and
right.
That would be magnified there as well.
It's really easy to waste a lot of money on bad marketing. And we all deal with that all the time, because I think when we come in and when I talk to a lot of prospective clients, they have all been burned by bad marketing. And it's usually because they've wasted a lot of money because they focused on a tactic here, a tactic there. Whatever tactic they didn't implement it in the right way. I'm not blaming anybody. I mean, it's hard to know. I'm not going to go repair concrete because I don't know what the hell I'm doing when it comes to that. So, I mean, for me, I'm going to hire an expert to go do that. And I think there are certain things. Look, marketing is maybe the most important system for your business, because without marketing, you are not going to grow predictably and in a healthy way to achieve your goals. You may be able to get by and get lucky with it. Do you want to risk your business on that?
I think there's another thing to hear too. If you're speaking of a business owner that knows or wants to commit to marketing but isn't really sure what that means, I would suggest that it kind of doing a TOPA but on a full-time kind of way. And what I mean by that is perhaps it's either part of the interview process or it is a 2 or 3 week paid gig to be like, okay, come have a look at our business. What would you do here? Because then you're putting up some money, you're putting up 3 weeks of time, but then you're really getting to see how this person is looking at your business and trying to interact and figuring out what to do. And then at the end of that, I mean, it would be a pretty intensive job interview. But then, if you're the type of business owner that's like, I know marketing is important, really not sure, how to gauge this, then they'd be able to present to you, here's your business, here's how I understand it, here's what we do marketing wise for you, here's my first 6 months, here's what you need this, we're going to focus on that. And then that would help you see and give you confidence about, okay, if we bring you in, that's great, I know what you're doing for the next 3-6 months. It gives that business owner some confidence in there.
Yeah.
Well, a really common hiring practice is people go and look for a freelancer, and they do a small little paid gig to see what kind of output they're going to get from that from that engagement. And that's a really good way to say, hey, this person gets it. I feel comfortable that they can go create a bunch of really good quality social media posts, or they can run my Facebook ads or do whatever. It's hard to do when you're trying to hire an employee, because right now the job market is crazy. I mean, it's hard to hire and retain people. So I love your idea, Jen. I think that's a great idea. I think there's maybe a hybrid model where maybe you hire a company to do an analysis and then turn over that analysis and give that to your prospective hire and say, spend 2 hours and tell me how would you execute on this.
And at the same time, I would hire that same company that did the total online presence audit and have them develop the plan for you. Because again, I would not expect somebody without the expertise and the tools and the experience in developing strategic marketing plans to actually be able to do it. So you almost need something to gauge this person's work against. Otherwise, it might just sound great and it could just be smoke, right?
So,
yeah. Well, guys, I had more questions that I wanted to ask you that I thought were important for business owners to ask. So maybe we'll do another one of these next time, or not next time, but sometime down the road. But I think this is a good place to wrap up because time is ticking. So thank you, Ken, Paul, and Jen, for sharing your thoughts on this important topic. And thank you for the audience, for joining us today. I hope you found this topic valuable. If so, please share the link with other businesses who would benefit from it. Until next week, keep calm and market on.
That's so good.